course, the question is if Republicans are going to come out to vote, or are they going to be continually embarrassed to stay at home? Well, they say that all elections are local. Let me ask you some local questions here. If you know enough people to talk to, you'll hear on a local mayor's election in Birmingham, you'll hear the Alabama Power, the NEA, the EA, you, Drummond Company. I mean, there's a little of everybody out there leaking information about each other. You know who to call, who not to call. And yet the candidates themselves always have out-of-the-state polling for some reason, tracking polls. Two questions. Number one, it seems like the commonality of these polls is getting more dispersed. They're not coming together more. Anything will draw random samples and everything else. So I'm asking, first of all, how much does that have to do with caller ID and cell phones? That's number one. And number two, can you bring us through when you or Mark Kelly or ADA is, I know there's a variety of things you do. It's not just call up one day and that's the story. You do it before the election and watch certain movies. Those are my two questions. Yeah. What constitutes a poller's services to his client?
Yeah, well, it depends, obviously.
Like a mirror.
Yeah. Well, let me just say a word about the cell phone business, because there is a whole lot of stuff going on in researching the impact of cell phones. People who have cell phones and don't have landlines.
And caller ID.
And caller ID. Much of the research on cell phones, I can't speak directly to caller ID because I'm not sure that there is any real research yet, other than, I don't even think there is. But on cell phones, the most interesting thing is that yes, cell phones do underrepresent young voters. And there have been a number of surveys done which combine landlines with cell phones and kind of create a hodgepodge of different ways in which to measure what voters are up to. There are people out there who say that there is another 2% for Obama in this election that's not being captured by traditional telephone polling, which relies on landlines. There was some earlier research that compared young people, the same demographics of people who had only cell phones with those who didn't, and found no real differences. But the later research seems to be, and this is the Pew study, seems to be pretty clear that there is another 1.5 to 3% out there for Democratic candidates, because cell phones tend to be, younger voters have cell phones, etc. I think that 10 years from now, the whole polling game will change dramatically. And what you're going to see is more online surveys. I've started to do some online surveys where you have to literally weight this stuff. So for example, in Alabama, if you really wanted to know that you had a good sample of Alabama voters, you'd want a sample which was about 78% white and 22% black. If I did an online survey, the odds of me getting much past 15% black are very small. So what I would have to do in the end is weigh it up. I increase the total sample in terms of weighing the black component more heavily and reducing the impact of the white. That's fooling around with it, but it's the closest. The truth is, most surveys are weighted. Anybody says they're not isn't telling the truth. So you have to hope that 15% is pretty much on target. That you didn't get, if you only got say 5% black, you're going to essentially almost 5 times it. Increase its value in a survey by a factor of 5. You better hope that 5% accurately reflects that population.
Is your sampling here growing? I know it's a statistical measure based on your sample size, and you can maneuver that to be
well, sure. Well, some samples have more error.
Right.
Now, the tracking business is real interesting. I've done a lot of tracking over the years, and these are how tracking polls work. If I were doing, well, let me just say something about sampling. To do a national sample, you have to have, and you want to be within 3 points of error, margin of error of 3 points, you probably need to survey about 1,100 households randomly across the country. But if you want to say something about the South out of that sample, then that error margin will go up because there'll be, you know, let's say 400 or 200 or 300 out of 1,100 or whatever. So it really doesn't make any difference what the size of the population is. It's the size of the sample that determines the error or not. And again, the error is a probability error. It's not. We don't know exactly what it is. We say it's going to be. Had we had the chance to survey everybody, we would be within 3 points of whatever that thing was. Well, if you wanted to do a survey, let's say of Alabama, on a tracking basis, what you do is, I try to do about 600 sample for the state. That puts me within about 4.5 points, 4 points, something like that. And so what we do is we go 3 nights. 200 the first night, 200 the second, 200 the third, and I've got 3 nights, and that's 600. And I've got a statewide sample, right? The next night, I go to 800, but I drop the first 200. It's gone. So I'm constantly tracking forward, losing the old stuff. So that's why you have what they call 3-night trackers. Because they gives you spread in terms of the sample, not all being done on one night, etc. One of the things I thought was interesting about Friday night is that Friday night's a terrible night. We don't usually poll on Friday nights because nobody's home. Friday night on the debate had the lowest debate. It was lower than the conventions. Who's at home Friday night? Older voters. Stay-at-homes, people who don't party. Is that a good sample? And yet the people who saw the debate said Obama won, which would not be his constituency. So now tomorrow night, I bet it will have the highest ratings that we've seen yet. People want to see Palin. They don't really care about seeing Biden. They want to see what she does. Will she say something stupid? Will she come out of it? Expectations are low. If she doesn't dribble, she will win. And so that makes it kind of interesting, but it'll be interesting to see what tonight is. Yeah.
You talked about the 40-40-20 rule,
Yeah.
45.
Yeah.
It's about that 10-20%. Who are these people? What are they all about? What do they shoot? I mean, what are the politics?
Well, the point is that they're persuadables. They're not about a whole lot. They're busy people. They work. They tend to be independent voters. They tend to know very little about politics. They're not engaged.
Demographically?
I'm sorry?
Demographically, are they young?
Demographically, they're all over the place. They're not necessarily young or old. They're just inert stuff. So the whole idea is that these ads are supposed to form them. Listen, I've had a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.